conversation on the value of historically Black colleges and universities as the major incubator for brilliant African-American talent and leadership. To discuss how HBCUs will help remake global industry, I talked with Dr. David Thomas, president of Morehouse College, the institution that for more than 150 years has prepared young Black men to change the world. Internationally recognized for his expertise in organizational management and higher education leadership, Dr. Thomas is a noted academic scholar, award-winning author, and top business consultant for leading corporations. At Morehouse, his strategic direction has extended its reach through record-breaking fundraising, launch of online degree programs, and positioning the institution as a center for global leadership, professional equity, social justice, and innovation. Dr. Thomas, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Derek.
This is such an honor. You lead one of the most prominent HBCUs in the nation, Morehouse College, the alma mater of Martin Luther King Jr. And to start us off, I'd just like you to share the history, the mission of Morehouse, and then also, I know your leadership of Morehouse is a very personal story to you, and if you can share that, that would be, I think that would enlighten our audience.
Yeah. So it's a wonderful moment for you to ask me that question, because we just finished celebrating Founders Week for Morehouse College. And this is our 155th year of being of service to this nation and the country.
Congratulations.
And in that 155 years, we have pursued one mission: to develop men with disciplined minds who will lead lives of leadership and service. And I think if the proof is in the pudding, our evidence is very clear. Martin Luther King is an alum of Morehouse College, class of 1948. And what we like to say here at Morehouse, and I think we're right, is that much of the world knows Morehouse because they know King, but if there was no Morehouse, there would be no King. Because those tenets of disciplined mind, leadership, service have anchored this university's mission, focused on Black men. And the way I like to describe Morehouse is that we are the only institution of higher education in the world focused on the development of Black male excellence at scale. We are the only place in higher education among selective liberal arts colleges where Black male excellence is an expectation and not an exception. We have produced CEOs, secretaries of health and human services, surgeon generals, secretaries of Homeland Security, judges, heads of National Science Foundation. You can go down the line, and there's not one area of human endeavor that there's not a Morehouse man who has managed to succeed, to lead, and to serve. My own story with Morehouse, what brought me here, it took me 50 years to get here because I was born in the 50s, grew up in the 60s. No one in my family had gone to college, but my father told me if I did what he did, if if I went to college, I wouldn't have to do what he did for a living, which was be a laborer. So I decided I was going to college. And I read that Martin Luther King had gone to Morehouse. I was about 10 years old, shortly before he was assassinated. And when it was time to apply to college, I applied to Morehouse. I applied to another school I had never heard of that was called Yale. I got into both. Morehouse didn't give me any money, scholarship, and Yale gave me a full ride. I followed the money. And 4 years ago, I finally made it here as president of the college.
That's an amazing story, an amazing journey. I have to indulge a bit here and share also that I am an alumnus of an HBCU, a proud graduate of Norfolk State University. And that dovetails into my next question. You know, you talk about Morehouse, the rich tradition, and how it has impacted the nation. Share with me the value proposition for HBCUs broadly and why they're so important in terms of leadership in this country and innovation in this country, especially as it relates to business development.
Yeah, well, I think first of all, HBCUs are often under-recognized for the fact that compared to their peers, we take more students who are high need, more students who are first generation than our peer schools. And you can segment that by student population. So there are schools like Morehouse and Spelman. Most of my students get into at least one other top 50 selective liberal arts college. That's our competitive set. We also have students, we also have HBCUs whose students, their alternatives are primarily their local and state publicly funded schools, right? So not all HBCUs are the same. And, historically Black college and university is a category, right? But within the category, there are differences. But I think all of us in the context of our peer set show some interesting statistics. We take more low income, high need students, first generation students, and we produce better educational outcomes, higher graduation rates. A recent study showed that if you are from the lower quartile of economic status and you go to a historically Black college, the likelihood that you will move into the first or second quartile of economic status over your lifetime and remain there is higher if you went to a historically Black college than if you went to a predominantly white institution. It's also the case that even today, despite more than 50 years since the Civil Rights Acts were passed in the 1960s, the majority of doctors, lawyers, and educators who are African American came from HBCUs. So without HBCUs, there would be no Black middle class. And finally, I still think that it is the case that HBCUs provide a very unique developmental environment for African American students And the proof is in the fact that, at least for Morehouse, our students are the largest producer of Black men who go on to top 10 business schools and top 10 law schools. So we're producing students who can leave here and compete against the best coming from other institutions. And they are well prepared, and they leave with a sense of confidence and self that, quite frankly, I don't think is as predictably produced at predominantly white institutions. And I say that as someone who was educated at Yale, taught at the University of Pennsylvania, taught at Harvard for 22 years, was dean of Georgetown, great institutions. But I think they don't build the kind of confidence, and in fact, in some ways, often detract from the confidence that young Black students have, and in particular, in our case, Black men, when they enter college.
That opportunity to lead, that opportunity to, be educated by some of the most brilliant minds, a dedication to excellence. Obviously those are the hallmarks of Morehouse, but also that's instilled in HBCU graduates and students across the board. That they're going to be in competitive environments, and that they have to, step up to meet those competitive environments, and then they excel. Which is really, which was really amazing. And now we're seeing a flow over the last few years of even more African-American students coming into HBCUs. Share your thoughts about that. Why has that been such a phenomenon that we've seen over the last few years?
Well, I think first of all, the conversation about race in our nation has become much more central and centered. And I think that there's also a realization coming in the Black community that white is not better. And what we need to do with our young people today is place them in environments that will ask the best of them. And then you put that in the cultural context of Black culture is really central to American youth culture. And so I think it's created an awakening among young Black people who, quite frankly, 10 years ago, an excellent performing African-American student at many of the best high schools in this country, their college counselor would never have mentioned the HBCU to them. Today, those students are walking in asking about Morehouse. They're asking about Spelman. They're asking about Norfolk State. They're asking about Howard. And that has elevated, the attraction for these institutions. And I think among young people, it's very interesting. And I have children who are in their 20s and who recently finished college. And I see a sense of them almost, they don't articulate it this way, but there's a kind of political consciousness among them about wanting to reappropriate the ownership of their cultural identity and to take it out of the realm of simply being a cultural commodity that anyone can possess, and to see it as a matter of identity. And, you know, we see it happening on all kinds of levels. I mean, you know, my gridiron buddy, Deion Sanders, has changed the game, flipped the script in athletics. We've got top tier D1 recruits turning down Alabama, Georgia, Florida State, and they're going to HBCUs.
Well, you're seeing the that value proposition being embraced not only by African American professionals, African American students, but also major corporations. Major sponsors.
Yeah, and major corporations, especially those who've now really begun to see the education of the American population is now an issue of national security. And educating that population means educating all of it, including groups in our population that we have neglected. At the top of that list, quite frankly, is African American youth who are not from families of means.
Wow.
Hispanic youth, not from families of means. And the other issue that I think corporations are on to is this question of the wealth gap. And many have stepped back and said, this issue's been around for a long time. What institutions have a proven track record of impacting these issues? What's got to come to the top of the list is historically Black colleges and universities.
Well, in fact, our sponsor, Southern, has invested $50 million in HBCUs, 25 million of that in the Propel Center in Atlanta, where Morehouse is, positioned. Morehouse is historically the historic home of Morehouse, let me say. And so share with me how the Propel Center has been impactful, and how has it been received by the students and the faculty and by the the corporations that have come through Morehouse and some of the other institutions in Atlanta?
Well, I think there are that's a big question, Derek. So I'll try to take it in chunks.
Okay.
Let me start with the Southern Company. The Southern Company has realized that there are more historically Black colleges and universities in the geographic footprint of the Southern Company than almost any other company in the country that operates on a regional basis. So it's a business decision for them to say, let's invest in historically Black colleges and universities, because what do? They invest in the people who will be our workforce. And the Southern Company is not just interested in investing in people who come and work for the Southern Company, but in that population. So the Propel Center is focused on giving our students, and also being an epicenter for education around entrepreneurship for all the HBCUs in this region. and also being a local engine for supporting businesses and facilitating the relationship between HBCUs and their business communities. It's been very well received here. Our students are excited and engaged by it. They've also mounted it in a way that it's not duplicative or competitive with what we do, but supplements it and provides our students and faculty easy access to opportunities and experiences that, quite frankly, I don't have the resources to provide out of the coffers of Morehouse, right? But that some of the elite liberal arts colleges I compete with, they actually have the funds to create their own version of the Propel Center. So it's very much a way for us to aid our students in the ways they need to be competitive with the best of the best when they leave Morehouse College.
A driver in technology as well as innovation, business and entrepreneurial innovation.
Right, right.
But Morehouse as an institution has driven investment. You've launched your $500 million capital campaign. Already you've received $200 million. What has attracted donors, and what is your pitch that persuades donors to make that level of investment?
Well, first, I try to get donors to come visit our campus. Quite frankly, Derek, our largest gifts since I've been here have come from individuals who did not know Morehouse before they visited. And before they get to my office, I have them interact with my students. And by the time they get to my office, they are usually sold on the value proposition that Morehouse is a unique place focused on the development of Black men in the most important years of their lives. And, one of my largest donors, he came here, never been to Morehouse, historically Black college, very hard, I shouldn't say hard, but he's a guy, he doesn't like fluff. He has very hard questions. So he hung out with a group of my students for a half a day. And he asked them questions like, preamble. If you leave Morehouse, you're going to go into a world that's not predominantly Black. If you go into the business world, how's this helping you prepare for that? My students responded. And he was blown away. We also respond with the data, where our students go after they graduate and what they've done. Most of them operate in a world that's not predominantly Black, and they succeed at extraordinary levels. So that's the first part of the value proposition. And the second part of the value proposition is imagine what Morehouse could do if we were resourced at a level commensurate with our contribution to the society. And that really takes us beyond the borders of Morehouse. So for example, this last year, we launched the first globally available undergraduate degree program offered by a historically Black college. And our focus was on men who have some college but never completed. Turns out there are 3.4 million Black men with some college but no degree in our country. And we know that having a college degree correlates with all kinds of positive outcomes over the course of one's lifetime. And we talk about the kinds of things that we can do here on our campus and beyond, given our unique brand and capabilities to work with, this population of Black men, and quite frankly, more broadly, men of color, because we're not exclusive to Black men in our admissions, but they are the dominant population that we have served.
Well, you're so much a part of the community with the Entrepreneurial Center, the research you have done on Black men, just an expansive focus in terms of all areas of not only just African-American life, but looking at the world globally and African-Americans' place in there. One of the brands or branding of Morehouse, if you will, is its alumni. You have such an expansive alumni, such an accomplished alumni, and an impactful alumni. Share with us what the Morehouse alumni has done in terms of moving the school forward, whether it's being a part of the contributors, financial contributors, if it's being a part of the mentors that shepherd some of the students forward in business and other areas. What has been the impact of your alumni today?
So Derek, in your question, you gave the headlines. Our alumni have helped us in innumerable ways, but the top headline would be one. They are amazing at reaching back and mentoring our current students. And we produce more students who go on to the medical fields than our numbers would suggest we should. Much of that is because alumni who are doctors provide mentorships and internships, and even our alumni have created a program here in Atlanta where for 2 weeks students go and they shadow a Morehouse alum who is a medical doctor in areas like orthopedics, gastronomics, general surgery. So our students go in and they dress for the procedure. They do rounds with the doctor. It creates the imagination for who they can be. Similarly, our alumni who are in business have been just tremendous in creating opportunities in their companies for our students. Great example is Theodore Colbert at the Boeing company.
Ted, very well.
Yeah. Ted went beyond and got Boeing to create a multi-million-dollar effort to bring not just Morehouse students, but students from 10 other historically Black colleges and universities to Boeing for summer internships. Our alumni also are our primary recruitment mechanism. When we have a student, we really want to come to Morehouse, we see if we've got a Morehouse alum who lives within 10 miles of that student, and we turn that alumni loose on that student. And on that mother and father, but you and I both know mothers are key in these educational decisions. And then finally, alumni giving. And, you know, since I've been here in my 4 years, as we become, as an institution, much more proactive in asking our alumni to give, our alumni giving has quadrupled. And one example of that is in 2018, we raised about $240,000 on Giving Tuesday. This past year, we raised over $1 million on Giving Tuesday, and 90% of that came from alumni.
That's outstanding.
Yeah, last year we had a special Giving Tuesday where we raised $4 million, alumni.
You know, continue to be an exemplar of Black excellence on many levels. I have one last question. As part of today's summit, we have a Morehouse alumnus that's participating, Senator Raphael Warnock. We also have Representative Terry Sewell. Share with us how bringing together, you know, partnerships of government, academia, and corporations impact diverse talent as well as inclusive innovation. You know, this partnership with HBCUs, how does it drive those elements?
Well, the reality there, Derek, is just our nation has shown time and time again that it is at its best when government, business, and our great educational institutions all come together to move forward on any singular task of national importance. And I liken the task of creating the workforce and inclusive economy of the 21st century as being on the same plane as putting a man on the moon. And if you think about it, when President Kennedy said, we're going to put a man on the moon, which no one could imagine, it was a coalition of government, our political apparatus, our business community, and our institutions of higher education, who produced an extraordinary number of amazing scientists between 1960 and 1975, who were also the brains behind other inventions that had nothing to do with getting to the moon, like the internet. Right? And so now we see a similar moment where we're recognizing that for this nation to be competitive, we've got to educate our entire community of citizens. We've got to bring together business, government, and our educational institutions if we're really going to be successful. So to me, this is a moonshot.
And as we look at this moonshot and other developments in the future, I am sure that Morehouse will be among the institutions that are leading and driving those developments.
Well, you know, what we say here is that our goal is to be as impactful on the 21st century as we were on the 20th century. And that's a tall order. because you can't write the history of the 20th century without writing about Morehouse.
Dr. Thomas, thank you so much for this informative and inspirational conversation. I look forward to following up with you in the future, to talk about many more moonshots.
Well, thank you, Derek Dingle. And again, you've got a fan here at Morehouse called David Thomas.
Once again, thank you so much.
All right, be well.